Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Gaz Williams Show. And I've got an incredibly special guest today who's going to be joining me. This is Mr. Florian Pilz of the Audio Pilz YouTube channel. Kind of best known for his Bad Gear series, which has really kind of amused us all, especially in this grim year. But yes, so without further ado, let me introduce you to Florian. Here he is. Hello, Florian. Hello. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a lot of fun because you've just won Music Tech Personality of the Year 2020. Wow. How does that feel?
Yeah, that really surprised me, to be honest.
Right.
Because I'm a small fish in the pond, and the competition, which I don't like to call the competition because I all like them a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are really big YouTubers among them, and somehow I had the luck of the moment, I think.
Well, I think in part, though, it's a lot to do with having a really good angle on things. And now, for those of you who haven't seen any of these shows, the title might seem that you're kind of being quite negative about things, but it's actually quite far from that, really. You do actually have quite a lot of love for these, like this Bad Gear. So, I mean, so tell me, Len. So tell me, how long has your channel been in existence then?
I started this channel. The first show aired at the 14th of February this year.
Oh my goodness! So you've come from, in terms of YouTube, then, like from literally from zero to Man of the Year.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
This is in the most incredible way what happened. Yes.
But you've been very prolific and putting out very good quality footage and content. So I think it's thoroughly deserved, and it's funny as well. It is genuinely funny. So and we all need cheering up hugely. So I think you've been providing a really kind of valuable service. Right. So I've got the chat room live. I can see people are joining in. Wow, we got a good old gang so far, 30 odd people so far. So that's nice to see. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will be taking some questions as well from the chat room. But anyway, right. But I think what might be quite nice, though, is just to get a little bit of background about yourself, really, and your introduction to music, and maybe how you found your way into music tech. So let's roll back the years. And when did you first start? Oh, God.
The thing is, I am an audio engineer by training. I went to SEE about 20 years ago. I was like the classic guy sitting behind the mixing console in the studio, live, predominantly in the theater, and I mean, that's a fantastic job. I liked every second I did that job, but I got bored from doing that after a while, and I went back to university, and I finished that university degree, and I took up a normal job, like sitting in an office and doing normal office hours for a year. This was last year, and I found out that this is not my thing at all.
Right.
And then I quit that job, and I had no real idea what I was going to do, but I thought starting a YouTube channel would be a nice starting point for whatever it would be. So I did that, and then Corona kicked in. And there was nothing else to do but like working on that channel, and that's what I did.
Excellent. Okay. So so it's quite interesting, and you mentioning about being an audio engineer. I actually trained as an audio engineer too, and I think one of the things about that role, where you're kind of behind the glass or behind the console or whatever, not the public face, but you get a different perspective about what's going on. You're very much part of what's going on, but also kind of in the background. I mean, quite a big transition then, coming from the background to being very much in the foreground. How do you feel about that? I mean, now that you're going to be recognized, when you go around the place, people are going to go, "It's the Bad Gear dude."
It happens to me when I buy stuff in the local classifieds that I like text them in the app, and then I meet them, and I like take the drum machine or synth or whatever, and they, "You this audio Pilz dude?"
Yep.
But the thing about what you mentioned about sitting behind the mixing console and having a different view onto that stuff is that it helps me in that respect that the observation that I made is that musicians are very often in love with certain aspects of music making.
Right.
And this is not always good for the cause itself. And I come from a perspective where things have to work in a way, and this is what I try to do on the show. I get this gear that people are critical about, and I try to make it work. That's more or less what I do on the show, and I think that's the only thing, because I think I'm an amateur in most of the things I do on the channel, but I think that's the aspect of what I'm doing that I'm.
Oh, I think you just cut it out a little bit.
Time.
Just nearly lost you a little bit then. I don't know what happened. Things dropped off. Are you? Can you just? Oh, I think we might have a little freeze going on. This is where I've got to do my little tap dance routine. Let me just check what's going on. Ah, you're back. We lost you. We lost you.
Yep.
A little freeze for a moment. Not quite sure what happened. Okay. So yes, that was a very interesting point you were just making there. It's definitely something I can relate to. I've been doing a lot of live streams. I started doing that during this pandemic era, and I'm definitely not showing things at their best. In fact, I think I'm taking stuff that works really well and doing almost the opposite of you, making really good things appear rubbish. But that's down to my incompetence rather than the actual thing itself. But anyway, so
I don't think so.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you've had on the show, on the Bad Gears show so far. I mean, which one has caused the most controversy, would you say, sort of in terms of in the comments for the videos?
I think that is clearly the drum brute.
The drum brute.
Yes,
yes, right.
Because it's a great instrument. The concept is fantastic. It's well built. It feels great. It's got this great sequencer, and there are some.
Oh, we're losing you. Oh dear. Oh, what's going on? I'm just going to... we've lost him again. Okay. Let me just...
Where did the internet connection break down?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to wonder if I'm wired in. I'm just going to check something. I'm all wired in. Right. I tell you what, I'm just going to try pressing a button here. This may just destroy everything, but let's just hope it doesn't. Okay, no, that's good.
I'm afraid it's my connection, and I can dial in via the phone, if this makes sense to you.
Okay. Well, let's see how we get on. It may just be a little moment there. Sorry about this, folks. We all know what's going on. We've all experienced this. In fact, one of the things that I've certainly experienced from doing my live streams and having a terrific chat room who are so helpful and incredibly patient is that when things have been going a bit wrong, people have kind of gone, look, everyone's shows are going wrong, it's not, in fact, this is one thing I'm wondering about, is that I wonder if the pandemic is going to kind of finish off a certain illusion. Television has always tried to make this kind of glamorous kind of facade about stuff. I mean, I don't know if you've ever done any TV shows, but where you've got the thing that's being seen, as soon as you're slightly off the set, my watch is making noises, but as soon as you're off the set, it's raw plywood, it's kind of, but the viewers kind of are always treated to this very kind of pure thing. And like another thing as well, something that was an absolute no-no is jump edits. And, YouTubers do it all the time. It seems that the audience is much happier to have all the ums and pauses cut out and have people just jump cut, and with no attempt to disguise that edit, So, I mean,
but I think it is good to have that on YouTube because it makes stuff more relatable. I think that people can identify more with what's going on the screen if it's obviously a human being doing all that.
Yes, I think it is. But so I'm wondering, like hopefully there will be a post-pandemic, and that this isn't it now for the rest of our lives. No, hang on in there, folks, and we will get through this together. But just I think things will change. I don't think we'll go back to the way things were quite the same. So I'm kind of curious about this. So speaking about sort of moving forward, then you must feel very emboldened. Then this new kind of award must really give you a good bit of momentum. Then, so do you think this is it now? You're going to really put a lot more of your time and energy into your channel.
The thing is, it is of course emboldening. But and I know everybody who gets an award says this, but it's really humbling. Yeah. It is. I really appreciate the support that I get from all the people who voted for me and the people who watch my stuff and the people who are in the comments all the time. This is something that I would never have expected to be so positive because the internet is known to be a very evil place. Yeah. In many cases.
Yeah,
and
can be.
It's not there at all. There is everybody's friendly, everybody's nice with some very rare exceptions.
Yeah.
But this is something that I didn't expect in any way because I mean, you can clearly tell that my career as a boss model is probably not what I'm expecting from my life. But there is a lot of target with me and with my accent and all that stuff, and it's not a problem at all. People are accepting that, and people are appreciating it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think one thing that I've often mentioned this on shows. That I feel incredibly. I feel very lucky to be part of the music technology community, and the synth end of that especially is a very friendly and a very encouraging, supportive environment. So yeah, so I think you're definitely in the right sort of company, I think. But anyway, let's.
The funny thing is that it wasn't planned that way. I mean, I planned to have some synth and groovebox and drum machine content on the channel, but as I'm coming from a pro audio background, I was talking about mixing consoles and outboard gear and maybe some guitar stuff and stuff like that. But somehow it was the synth that stuck. I don't know why. But synth is probably better on YouTube because you can actually discern the difference. Because if you got two compressors that are have a similar basic sound and you try to compare them on YouTube, it doesn't really work out. I mean, some people manage to do this, but it's not easy.
No, because you're up against audio compression from the YouTube algorithm that can do some very odd things, and it can be quite disconcerting. And some of the sonic state features that I've done, have sounded really good and out the studio monitors and stuff, and then listen back on YouTube, it's like, oof, don't know. Yeah, it's okay. So let's talk a little bit about your first encounters with maybe synthesizers, drum machines. Did you? I mean, with these things when you were like a teenager, was this something that you were interested in?
The funny thing is that I was maybe the first generation who grew up with solely digital stuff.
Right.
There was some old analog gear lying around, but when I started dealing with audio stuff, I got one of those Roland VS840 digital 8-track recording studios that recorded on zip drives and had some kind of MP3 audio compression built in, and it sounded not so bad actually.
I think I think those things are kind of classics. I think those may start gaining some kudos because the Porta Studio, for want of a better term, market just collapsed. I mean, Zoom make a few models and Tascam make a few models, but it's as though that laptops and the audio interface. Boss of a few. Yeah, that's true. But the audio interface and laptop or desktop just kind of killed that market. And I love Porta Studios. Porta Studio is a Tascam name, but a little mobile studio, and I've had numerous ones over the years. So, and the VS, the 1681, is it 1680? The that was something that I was.
This was the big one with the CD drive.
Yeah, and the one I really wanted there was the Akai DPS 24. Did you ever see that one? That was kind of over-engineered, really. It was a big old beast, and yeah, I mean, wow. I'm with flying faders, and what else did it have? It had a lot of cool things on it. Yeah, I think they then, that market just, as I say, just completely collapsed. I am still hoping, like every time I go to NAMM or, not going to happen this year, this next one, but that's what I'd go looking for. Is anyone coming back into the portable
But isn't
studio?
like all the features that modern digital mixing consoles have built in are comparable to what those Porta Studios, as you called them,
You think, well, doing? Kind of. I mean, yeah, lots of like mixers, you can maybe record multi-channel or something. I think it's this idea of just being able to do everything from the one unit, edit, move things around, remove sections, do the whole thing. I mean, most people would say, well, but that's what a DAW does kind of better. My argument, though, is I think the more time you spend away from the computer, that these devices aren't computers. They don't have Facebook and YouTube built in, just sort of always just a click away.
That's the main thing, yeah.
I think it's huge. I really think it's huge. Really huge. So yes. Okay, so so that's an interesting thing. Yeah. So then
the VSH40 was like the first accessible thing for a kid like me. And I was getting on the nerves of my parents to get hold of that thing. And the thing that I used as like the first real synthesizer was Rebirth 1 on an old MacBook G3.
The you have to use this term carefully, the game changer, but in terms of software, Rebirth changed everything.
Not even the 338 thing or 388, I don't know exactly, but like the first one that just had like
an 808
or 909 or whatever, and two 303s and a delay, and that's it.
That's the one.
It still holds up, I think. It has a certain sound to it.
Oh, it really did. I mean, I think it has actually now been taken down because I think, was this mentioned the other day, but with Roland's kind of Cloud, I think, when they I think that might have finally finished off Rebirth, but it had a very long innings. Just checking in with the chat room now, because there's been some comments regarding like portable studios. The Harry Turner project, Yamaha MTX4 gets an airing when I want to make synth drums mushy. And what else? I saw a few other things. It's gone off the screen now. Oh, sorry. My screen isn't scrolling. Oh, there we go. Okay, well, sorry. Chat room moves too quick. The chat room just goes too quick and things scroll off the screen before I can see. But yeah, so you were using Rebirth, and that obviously whets the appetite somewhat, doesn't it, for to expand?
Of course. And I was playing like guitar bands back then. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did like until a few years ago, and we were trying to combine that electronic sounds and the normal pop music that we were playing, and we of course failed. But it was actually fun to do that. The real interest for synthesizers and electronic music on a broader base was when I moved to Vienna at the age of 19, because Vienna has, I mean, it's not Berlin, but it has some nice clubs, and it has a very vivid scene of some electronic genres, and especially drum and bass and techno, some weird stuff as well. There is like a group of people here in Vienna who are into synthesizers, and like Tom, we've already talked about Synth Anatomy.
Yep.
He's part of them as well. And I, like a few months ago, had the honor to play a little like online live show at one of their virtual festivals, and
Neat.
there's a vivid scene of people interested in electronic music and synthesizers and stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's gosh, I think is there a particular modular store in Vienna? Because I mean, I know there's a lot of modular synth action originates in Vienna, right? Yeah. Oh gosh, my brain is gone. But I did see a performer from Vienna at Superbooth last year who had a laser, like a laser show that was totally controllable from the modular. So as they could manipulate the sounds, it was interpreting it as lasers. Oh, I wish I could remember his name. It was that was really good because there was an absolute correlation between the sound and the laser. It was as one, and that really got me kind of curious about the kind of stuff that happens in Vienna.
There's one thing that you shouldn't forget, that there are like two art universities in Vienna, the Bildende and the Angewandte, who have a lot of people who are focused on all that crossover stuff between like audio and video and like performative arts and whatever, like all that interdisciplinary stuff.
And you get
this is something that really feeds the scene in this regard.
Right. And I mean, Vienna does have that absolute history of music for a start, you know. But the Biennale, that's Vienna, isn't it?
The Biennale is Vienna.
Yeah, of course
it
is.
Biennale should be in Venice.
Venice, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I got it wrong.
Don't quote me on that, but yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Checking in with chat room. Have I checked out the sampling app called Flip? That's from Andrew Huang, isn't it? I haven't checked it out yet, but I mean, if he's put his name to it, then it's going to be good. He's a very talented.
Is it Android or is it iPhone or is it PC or Mac or
I have a feeling it's iOS. I have a feeling it's iOS. Okay. I might be wrong. But I mean, it's interesting actually. We've seen that a little bit happening this year. That YouTubers have been involved in making software. The wonderful Heinbach has had his hands on 2 releases this year. So it's kind of curious to see this. And obviously Andrew Huang now. So this is kind of cool. It's definitely a changing landscape. This is something now that
I think there's a demand for that at the moment, especially because of the pandemic. So
yeah.
I can see the reason why they are doing this. And I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, who else would you ask to do it?
Well, Heinbach would be is a perfect example.
I mean,
because
I would ask Andrew Huang and Heinbach probably to tell me how to make an app. So
yeah. So it's interesting because YouTube for me isn't necessarily something I was actually ever necessarily planning on doing stuff. You know, I've been working with Sonic State now for 10 years. And I guess it's been a bit of just a natural kind of development of that in a way, and doing these kind of things now. But checking out YouTube, the broader kind of thing in YouTube, I think is a cultural phenomenon. But someone said to me recently about like YouTube almost being a like monopoly in terms of live streams, and I was wondering, are there any other platforms that you would consider doing stuff on other than YouTube? I mean, YouTube just seems to work so well, but
that's the point, more or less. I mean, there are streaming platforms that have more market shares in the gaming industry, as far as I know. I mean, I'm no expert in that, but we've already talked about Twitch, for example. I mean, they really got a hold in that game.
Yeah.
But I think for what we are doing here, YouTube is still the most interesting thing.
Yep. No,
I mean, we all know what YouTube is about, and we all know where it's room for discussion. But yeah, it works. I think that hits the nail on the head.
Yeah. I am going to try. I mean, we are streaming on Twitch and Twitter at the moment through Periscope on Twitter. So hello to anybody who is tuning in on those platforms. And I'm going to apologize now for anyone, the one or two people who do join the Twitch stream. Twitch isn't something that I've particularly engaged in, but I'm planning on it. And what I'm planning on doing is doing music production, like long, just streaming long time. I mean, I stream long enough as it is, but like I stream long time. Sorry, I don't know where my English language has just completely gone south. No, but doing
sounds like Full Metal Jacket what you just said.
Yeah. But doing production, like and then I wouldn't expect people to watch the whole thing, but maybe over like a 5 or 6 hour stream, just build up tracks and build up stuff and just occasionally mention what's going on, and then people can tune in and out as they see fit. A little bit like the way the gamers were, gamers can stream for like 10 hours or so yeah, that's something I'm curious about. So let's talk about your musical influences then. So what was the first musical influence that really that was your own discovery, that was not, that was something that you found that really kind of excited you? I mean, we're going way back now.
The thing is that it is hard to pick apart, because I grew up in a very musical family, and like culture and music and art played an important role. And my father dragged me on stage at the tender age of 2 weeks. For
2
the first
weeks,
time, something like that. Yeah, like
all right.
Took me on stage at a gig because he could, like that. He had the same beard that you have, by the way. But yeah, and I was he gently asked me to play in his bands all the time. So I grew up with making music within the family in a way.
Sweet.
And it's hard to discern where my own input comes in for the first time, and where it's just like the heritage that I'm in to a certain degree.
What kind of music would be played in the home? Would it be more kind of classical stuff, or would it be the whole, rock and pop? Or
no. My father was a huge jazz fan, and he had a jazz band, and I played in the jazz band, but I'm not good enough for like real jazz playing, not in the same way that you. I assume that you are.
No,
so
well, I've done jazz gigs. I've done jazz gigs, but I'm what's going on? Oh, that was weird.
Cool effect.
That was cool effect. I've done jazz gigs, but it's been there's a bluff. I'm gonna show you. Here's a really cool bluff. Right. To do anything jazzy, whatever you're playing, you've got like this thing. This is like the ultimate cheat. This is. I say all you've got to do is whatever notes you play either, like, say the chord that you're going to go to is this one here. Just make sure that you approach it with the note either a semitone below or a semitone above. And I tell you what, you can get away with just playing any old nonsense in between. So long as you kind of hit the note on the change and you approach it. So there's like a target note. So we say, here's a target note, and then the approach note, a semitone below or a semitone above, and all the rest can be utter bollocks.
Yeah.
And it sounds like
outside?
A little bit like, yeah, some of the outside notes, but it just it's amazing. I've done jazz gigs, and that's been my kind of cheat, right? So secret's out.
Strategy.
But yeah, but actually I've got a lot of really great jazz musician friends, and it takes an extraordinary amount of study and practice to play jazz fluently, and to kind of do it for real rather than bluff jazz.
I don't know. Do you have the same thing in Great Britain? But in Vienna, there's a very strong jazz police.
Yes, I know what you mean.
The people in the audience who, no, that's not right. You shouldn't play that.
Right. Well, there is a thing. It's a little bit of a derogatory term, really, called I don't know if you've heard it being referred to as the jazz ghetto, which and actually this is slightly less true now than it used to be, but it's still sadly a bit true, meaning that the more you learn and the better you get, the smaller audience and the least interest, that there's this really weird kind of equation of the better you get, the less people will like it. Only the jazz, you end up being maybe intimidated by the jazz police in trying to sort of appease them. And I do see this in a lot of players that they throw in these kind of in whatever instrument they're playing, but they throw in these kind of almost cliche jazz things just to kind of go, look, I'm playing jazz. The best jazz musicians who I know, they don't necessarily sound like they're playing jazz. They sound like they're playing music,
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of one of those things. I mean, I love jazz. I love it. I really love jazz.
Totally.
But I also realise that it takes a lot of work to do it properly.
I don't think that I'm smart enough for playing jazz. I never really understood it in a way. I don't know.
It's just that it really is, an intellectual kind of music force in many ways, but for the listener, really, technique and theory should never get in the way of the enjoyment of it in a way. So we've got a thing, let me say in my home here, called UTB, and it stands for up the bum. So like my wife might go, oh, it's gone a bit UTB, it's just it's a bit UTB, and because she sort of likes jazz, but she for her there's been like this. And this is what I was alluding to earlier, saying that the jazz ghetto maybe isn't quite so, things have expanded a little bit. But bands like Snarky Puppy and to a lesser degree, I suppose, Wolfpack, but a whole bunch. Lewis Cole, yeah, I was going to say that. Lewis Cole, Thundercat, the Kamasi Washington, a lot of the stuff coming actually from LA, in the last sort of 4 or 5 years has been fantastic. And I've been at festivals. Not this year, but in recent years, and seeing Kamasi Washington, for instance, playing to massive outdoor crowd. And I think it took the biscuit last year. I was at the Green Man Festival. Sons of Kermit. It sounds almost like Sons of Kermit, but Sons of Kermit, which is a London. Like there's a wicked scene in London, and certain acts have been taking, have really been ripping up the rule book, and Sons of Kemet being one of them, playing on the main stage of Green Man Festival. It's a major festival in Britain in the afternoon. And it's like a 3-piece, drums, tuba and sax, and a big capacity crowd for a 3-piece. And the drummer and the sax player left the stage at one point, and the tuba player had the stage to himself, and there was a big crowd of enthusiastic people for it. And I was thinking, times have changed. This is good. This is really good. But they are fantastic though. They are really well worth checking out. And I was blown away by that, like kind of tuba solo. So yeah.
But I think that jazzes are, my humble opinion, please don't butcher me, that jazz players are best when they still try to expand the genre and do stuff that you wouldn't expect from a jazz player.
That's what it should be, really, because it always had.
Because that's what jazz is about.
Yes,
yeah.
And it froze. Like the 80s version of jazz got really nasty because it embraced a lot of 80s technology, which worked fantastically in kind of synth music. But, Miles Davis, kind of Tutu and that sort of era, some good, but it's quite cheesy as well. It's sort of, I don't know, but also things like Chick Corea. A lot of the bands, they were trying to bring in kind of new tones.
But I think that this kind of cheesiness is really embraced at the moment. I see that the channel, whenever I do something 80s style, whatever, people really like it. All the aesthetics, all the cheesy sounds, like
it's true actually.
Cheap FM stuff, too much reverb, you name it.
But I mean,
it's got a huge revival at the moment.
Yeah. I think it's just that I'm not sure the fit with jazz. And well, the point I was going to say though is I think as a kind of reaction to that a little bit, I think jazz kind of got frozen a little bit. It was almost that 1959, that kind of that glorious year in jazz. Obviously, kind of blew Miles Davis, but there's a whole bunch of things that came out in that year. Take Five, Time Out, Dave Brubeck, and it's almost as though that became the defining what is jazz in a way. And I think lots of jazz musicians kind of got a little bit stuck that everyone was just working within that kind of classic format. And I think that's happened for a while. Now it feels that's broken, and bands like Snarky Puppy or whatever, your young musicians bringing in an energy and actually looking at the 70s kind of fusion era a little bit with an excitement and reinterpreting it and bringing in new influences. It's been incredible. And I think that has actually broken this freezing of this almost sort of too reverent approach. Anyway, that's my opinion. Yeah.
But there's an Austrian band. It's called König Leopold, like King Leopold. And it's like a drummer that plays keyboard at the same time. And they obviously are trained jazz players, but they don't give a damn.
Yes.
They just do the weirdest stuff. They hang out in like cheap women's underwear in the forest and play the funkiest stuff you've ever heard.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Right. I'll need to write that down. That sounds very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Like in the worst Austrian accent you've ever heard. Nobody, even Austrians, don't understand what they're singing about. It's weird, but those are bands that I really like with a jazz background, like totally pushing the boundaries, doing something completely different, like taking the knowledge, taking the skills they have, taking their chops, and like translating it into something completely different.
Yes, because it's nice to see synthesizers. See, look, Inky saying in the chat room, how did a chat, turn into a Bad Gear episode turn into a discussion of modern jazz? But yes, but here we go. I'm bringing things back in now because we are seeing sort of jazz acts using like synthesizers on stage. I'm thinking, obviously, I'm mentioning Snarky Puppy. I mean, Snarky Puppy, not necessarily a jazz band, but certainly jazz musicians and jazz influence. But putting synthesizers quite, forward. Obviously, Corey Henry, I think that, Snarky was a launch pad for him, and terrific. And he's got a player when he plays with his funk apostles, I think they're called. But his second keyboard player, Nicholas Samrad. Have you come across him, Nick Samrad? He's got a YouTube channel. He's fantastic. I mean, obviously, great player, but loves synthesizers. And I remember Nick Batt from Sonic State. He told me about him first, and he was talking about seeing him doing a little demonstration when I think it was the Yamaha Mo DX. I think it was on the launch of that. They went over to New York for it, and one of the techniques that he was using was because these like big keyboards, so these big kind of like the Mo DX, so they're packed full of features. And sometimes kind of wonder who could utilize these features. And this example Nick mentioned, I thought was really fascinating. What Nick was doing was, Nick Semrad was doing, was he had like a kick drum mapped to his lowest key, but he had the volume of it completely turned down. But he had it side chaining his main kind of chords, or like kind of Rhodesy sound or whatever he was doing. So as he was playing kind of chords, he's kind of punching in with like this kick drum that's no sounder kick,
like an envelope,
it's essentially an envelope, being like an envelope. But he can perform it. He can hit kick drums in, and it's doing the sidechain effect on the keys that he was playing. And Nick mentioned that to me. Nick Batt mentioned that to me, and I went and checked it, and it's like, wow, that's such a cool technique. Interesting, using all this facility that these modern instruments can do, but kind of, it wasn't, the designers weren't anticipating people using it in such a way, but find that kind of thing quite interesting.
But as you talked about, like the whole Snarky Puppy bubble, the Lewis Cole keyboarders and even he himself, they are like using just a master keyboard on a laptop. They don't give a damn.
Yeah.
And it's like mostly raw waveforms because they play like hell. I mean, those are the best players I've ever seen, but these guys are really great.
Yeah.
But it's like the most basic sounds you can imagine.
Yeah. Went to see Noah, and that's Knower. That's Lewis Cole's other band with Genevieve.
With Mr. Toddy, yeah.
Yeah. And it was the full band lineup version that we saw, and it was a thrill. It was a thrill. And Lewis Cole is one of the real breakout stars, in my opinion, in the last few years. It's something else.
But YouTube made him great, as we were talking about it before.
Yes.
The thing why he is in the position he's in now is because he has a very interesting YouTube appearance. I mean, his whole video aesthetics, the whole iPhone shot videos in the house with the band all over the house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great.
Really
it's
good.
Fun to watch. It's really it's got a high production value, although it looks kind of trashy.
Yeah, and
it's a big inspiration for me as well.
Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, that's cool because we saw that as well with Wolfpack. Using really kind of low production value, but great music. Like a great musical value. So again, about this earlier point, saying like maybe post-pandemic. A certain glitz and I think may fall away a little bit now. I think it would be a little bit hard to return to something. Anyway, let's talk about some bad gear though.
Bad gear, yes, always.
Yeah, okay. Thank you everybody for sticking with us. Though we're going to sort of deviate all over the place, but we'll talk about bad gear. Right, so how many episodes of the Bad Gear show have you done now? It's quite a few, I think.
I think it should be about 50 Bad Gear episodes, and a few Better Gear and like various Florian does stuff that is related to gear on the channel.
So we were saying how
I'm like 70 episodes in.
Wow. Okay, that's fair play. You've been very busy this year. Now you say no, like so you will look at a piece of gear that's maybe had quite a hard time from internet armchair critics or whatever. What though? No, this is $1 million question. What is the worst piece of gear that you've actually really struggled to find any kind of musical use out of?
I have to admit, and this might sound like bragging, it's not. I never really struggled with any piece of gear that I could get something musically meaningful out of it, because yes, sticks and stones.
Okay, so
would be enough if you have an idea of what you want to do with it. But what's the most? I never was able to wrap my head around the sequencer of the Alesis SR16.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, I love the drum machine. It's got like the sounds that sit in the mix like no other.
Yeah, very right at the front, really.
I stopped using drum plugins since I got the SR16 because it's like those sounds work all the time not for jazz or something like that. I can't play jazz, so it's not a problem. But like for everything that's like rock or like 80s stuff, synthwave, some electronic stuff, it works all the time. You just put it in, you can compress it to death. It always works. Punchy, upfront, nice. I really like it a lot. But the sequencer is like the most terrible contraption I ever had the doubtful privilege to witness.
Fair play.
It's bad. Yeah.
So you know what? I know this is gonna be. I know what's you know what's coming next. The Akai Timber Wolf, the Tomber Wolf. They're the keys one.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Did,
I really like the synthesizer.
I like
it a lot.
You liked it?
I think it's a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
I think this synthesizer is a big misunderstanding. I mean, you can't do every musical genre with it, but it's got this really nice sequencer. It's got that 4 analog voices. It's got that hand-on control that is kind of quirky, but it's okay. See it as a string machine. Just like those dull sounds that like just work atmospheric, put some reverb on it. smooth sailing. I really liked it a lot. I was prepared to hate it, and it worked great for me.
Oh, Oliver Chesler in the chat room. I like the Wolf too.
I mean the rhythm booth, like the first drum machine, this like 808 style drum machine from that Akai Animal range. That kick is interesting.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. I mean, it's got some sounds that you can really use for music production. That kick, you have to process it so heavily to make it like work in whatever mix you're using it for.
But what about the howl function on the on both of these, on the Rhythm Wolf and the Tumble Wolf? Have you managed to actually find the sweet spot on that? Because doesn't it just go from can't hear it, can it, until is there like the tiniest sweet spot on there?
I mean, it's cool for the synth part, actually. I really like it for the synth part of the rhythm booth. But I didn't find a lot of applications for that. It's not the best overdrive I've ever heard.
Just checking in with the chat room. Asserhead saying the worst keyboard that he had was the Worsey Entertainer. I've never heard about that.
Worsey. Right. They are super popular around here. Because my father had one of those, like a 2-manual Worsey in his home, a digital one, and it's the worst. Yeah.
A future episode, maybe.
No, we've sold it recently. It's got no sequence. It's got no MIDI. I would be totally lost. I would have to work together with someone who would be able to play it. And it's got like 200 pounds. I don't know. It's heavy. It's huge. It's got like pedals and stuff. It's
okay. Oh, curious to check that out now. Now, I saw recently that you did a collaborative video with a certain Alex Ball. Now, that was a very fun episode, and Alex has had a similar meteoric rise, I think. He's been going, for a few years longer than yourself, though. But I thought that was a very interesting meeting of minds. How did that come about?
Facebook.
Okay.
Because one really important communication channel for me is always the Facebook groups. I don't like Facebook in particular, but the synth groups are really great, and they are usually not that problematic than the rest of Facebook. You know the reasons. We all know the reasons.
Yeah.
But this works really great, and it's a good channel to communicate with like-minded people in that respect.
Yeah.
And Alex commented on what I posted, and I commented on what Alex posted, and we had a little chat, and we found out that
it was one of those
would be funny,
like on the beach, running in slow motion to each other, just one of those moments.
Exactly. Yeah. The thing is, because of the lockdown, I wasn't able to meet him in person. It's so frustrating. This is the thing that really bugs me. That, for example, I would like to meet you in person. I would like to meet Alex in person. I would like to meet Simon the Magpie in person. It's not possible at all.
Yeah. Hopefully things will change. I mean, hopefully, and if you're watching this,
I was so short before, to booking a flight for Simon to Vienna in December, but yeah. Without asking him, but
he sometimes checks in on the show. Simon the Magpie we're talking about there, and I was mentioning to Florian just before we went live tonight, sort of that in the Synth Reactor last year, something I'm sure you would be a great guest to appear in future ones if that does indeed happen again. I hope it will. But Simon was there, and I hadn't met him before that, and I think a few of us who talked maybe had slight reservations about him, but he just turned. He's just pure love. That guy is amazing and really inspiring. A wonderful guy. Last time I saw him was actually really a lovely surprise. He turned up at the Sonic State NAMM pool party earlier this year. Which that's a long-term tradition that if you're at NAMM and if you're a Sonic State in any way, watch Sonic State stuff, you go and come to the pool party on the Saturday, which is a lot of fun. And Simon turned up, and Cuckoo and a whole bunch of others, which was lush. So yeah, that was really good fun. Oh gosh, I mean, it's unbelievable that was this year. Now it feels just disconnected because this year is just as it's. Anyway, moving on. I'm going to be asking the chat room for some questions. So, actually, chatties, 106 in the chat room at the moment, which is lush to see. So if you do have questions and would like to take some questions, so please formulate your questions and we will work our way through some of them, if indeed there are any questions. But
if we left anything to ask. So.
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty. Meadowbird's suggesting perhaps the Akai S01 sampler is an episode for the future. Now I know that.
Do
you know that one?
But that's actually good gear, isn't
it? yeah. I mean, they sound great. They do sound great. There's but you're having to use. Is it just a 2-digit display for everything? So there's quite a bit of and of course it comes, I was going to say a bit of head scratching, and it comes from the era where manuals were written by someone who was a clear sadist, I think. There was a thing, you see, that Japanese products that were coming out, certainly in the 80s, and I don't know if you've delved much into this, and this is a possible future spin-off, bad manuals.
I've had a lot of fun with the manual of the Roland's D110.
Oh, right. Now you're talking.
Talking about sadism.
Yes.
Because it's impossible to operate this thing without consulting the manual.
Yeah.
Completely out of the discussion to get something meaningful out of that, except for the presets, without consulting the manual. And I read it twice, like the whole thing, and it didn't work out. I mean, I made a 5-minute bit in the episode just about what this thing could do parameter wise and how it is described in the manual. It's an abomination.
I think one of the things that that those manuals lacked was any why. It might give you kind of how you can follow this sequence of but no actual explanation why you might want to do that in the first place.
But the thing is that those manuals had a hard job as well, because the structure of those old, especially digital devices, it's not what you would call intuitive.
No, and okay, some questions have come in. You're gonna like this one. Jimmy Sandwiches, funnily enough, favorite variety of sausage.
There is, I've gotta talk about the Austrian thing. There is a special sausage in Austria that originates from the time when we were a large empire, and we owned all the countries around, which is good that we don't anymore. It's called Käsekreiner, and it's a rather big sausage with cheese in it, and the main feature of this sausage is that every time you eat it, you completely burn the roof of your mouth.
Okay.
This is the reason why you eat it.
Right. Yeah. For that burn, to feel that, and then
just for the burn, and then you feel terrible afterwards, but it's the greatest experience to eat it.
Do you get a nice bit of flappy skin you can roll around with your tongue then off the top there, and it's all part of the joy of it.
I wouldn't have gone into so much detail, but yes.
Okay. Oh, favorite book. Now there's a more intellectually stimulating question.
Yeah, because of the bookshop.
Yes.
The bookshop. Yeah, favorite book is a hard one actually, because there are so many good books.
Yeah, that is a hard question. Yes.
That is a really hard question. I mean, can we start with favorite author?
Why not?
Favorite author is most probably Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Because this is another thing that really inspires my work on the channel as well, because Hunter S. Thompson does a thing that was unique to him, that he was a journalist, of course.
Yes.
And he like invented that gonzo journalism, that he's not writing about how things actually were, but how he experienced them and somehow got closer to reality that way.
I mean, it's obviously Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is maybe his most... I was in Las Vegas for the first time this year, and actually, coincidentally, I was there whilst the Mint 400 was actually taking place, and I was so excited. Just I felt just that little tiny connection to all of that.
Yeah, but when I was in Vegas, the first thing I had to do was to go to the Circus.
Yes.
To that one casino with that
yeah.
How's it called?
Yeah, it's a merry-go-round.
Merry-go-round.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Okay, some more questions come in. One of the questions is, how long do you typically spend on making your videos? How many hours do you put into a video, and do you get any help?
Nope, I do everything on my own except for the soldering stuff. And a very, very good friend of mine, one of my oldest and best friends, he is one of the smartest persons I know, and he helped me with the concept in the beginning. But the whole thing got so dynamic and so fast, like the whole process of making the episodes, producing the episodes, that this feedback loop stopped. But his input was the most valuable thing that I had. And it usually takes me about 3 whole days to make a Bad Gear episode, but I usually don't like go through it in one piece because it's really exhausting, because it's one jam where it's about the product itself, one jam where it's like in some kind of surrounding, then there is like the final musical bit with the video, then there is the intro tune with the adaptation of whatever movie or moving picture or whatever. Then there is, of course, the whole small bits, the underscores, all the memes. It's a lot of work, yes.
Now, here's a question, and I'm going to be interested to see. I'm not sure if it's aimed at the chat room, but I'm going to say it anyway. Bagpuss or rhubarb and custard? Now, if you understand what that question means, then you get special bonus points from me.
I'm not British, so I don't have an opinion on that.
Not only would you be British, but we're talking about 70s children's British TV shows. So yes.
Yeah, I was born in the 80s, so
and in another country. So I think you've got but I'll take that question, and I'm going to say rhubarb and custard, although that's a tough question. But both worth checking out though, because like
I only know those 2 terms from the streets, from that British hip hop artist, because he's got it in one line. So
okay.
That's where I know it from, but I have no picture to that.
Here's a question for the chat room then. What played the lead melody of the Rhubarb and Custard theme tune? There we go. What made that sound? Is it a guitar? Is it a mini Moog? What made that sound? So actually, I don't actually know the answer, so I'm hoping that the chat room will actually answer that long requested answer there. Moog has been suggested. All the mice in the mouse organ are now sad. That's a bagpuss. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to pull out of this before we get too stuck. But bagpuss, I mean, you know, it's kind of curious to see what people actually watched in the 70s, what passed off as kind of children's entertainment, because it's very dour and very melancholic, you know. It's sort of like the 80s, you know, brought in all kind of fluorescent pow, zap, whatever, you know. 70s, beige and brown and sort of muted, and, you know.
I grew up with Austrian TV, so it's probably the British TV from the 80s, just, from the 70s.
Okay, so you can relate.
So, because we were always like 10 years behind.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Okay, so just looking if I've missed any questions. For some reason, my scrolling it's not letting me scroll back.
I've never done a live stream, but I hear this complaint often that the scrolling is too fast.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, it's whizzing past, but I'm looking at it on an iPad, but it's not letting me scroll past. It's only letting me get to about 9 o'clock at the moment, so I think it's so comments before 9. It's Woody Piano Shack in the chat. But Woody's somebody else who's made huge strides with his YouTube channel.
Was he the guy playing the synth in the front yard?
Oh, maybe.
I forgot. I think it was an MC303 in the front yard, something like that. I'm not sure. Please.
Oh, I might have missed that. That's kind of okay. I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. Tiz Was has been mentioned now in the chat room. Now, Tiz Was a children's TV show that was just total anarchic from the late 70s, early 80s.
I thought we were off with talking about jazz.
Very good point. Okay, see, hey, yes, Woody has just confirmed you're right about the 303, and I'm going to apologise to Woody because I haven't actually seen that episode. There we go. All right.
It really helped me with my MC303 episode.
Oh, fab. Brilliant. Okay, right. I'm going to swerve away from that because just in case we alienate our lovely audience there who have no idea what we're talking about. Okay, so I'm kind of curious to ask you more about musical things that kind of float your boat. Do you have a like a film composer, for instance, that, or any particular soundtrack for a film that is a big influence, or anything in that soundtracky era?
Yes.
Genre.
But not necessarily. Of course, classic composers, classic music, film score composers as well. We all know the greats, but I really like the work of David Lynch, like this thing that is caught between music and sound design. This was a huge influence for me, especially when I worked at the theater, because it gives a scene a whole other dimension, and all his cooperations, all his collaborations with Marilyn Manson, Rammstein, all that stuff that nobody was touching in the 90s. I like that a lot. I like the soundtracks of Stanley Kubrick, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, those selections are great. The Handel stuff in Barry Lyndon, like when the dual scene is going on and they're just like playing the main leitmotif on the timpani and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Blows my mind.
A very underrated film, I think, Barry Lyndon. When people,
absolutely.
Maybe
they
one of his
shot
best.
The whole movie without artificial lights.
Oh, that's an amazing.
They were just using sunlight, torches, and candles. The whole movie. They got like special lenses from the NASA to get it working somehow.
Oh, I can't wait to watch it again now, knowing that.
Yeah, but it lasts for hours.
Like
3 hours. Something like that. I don't know.
Dara M is saying it's Kubrick's best. So that's cool. Yeah, I mean, Hans Zimmer actually sometimes joins, watches this show, and sometimes comments, which is kind of cool.
Great.
So,
I appreciated his work on, of course, The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
I mean that was probably his most exemplary piece of work. That cello when the Joker hits in, this is absolutely mind blowing. Those horns in Inception, I think that's Hans Zimmer too. Yeah. Yep. I like that a lot. One soundtrack that is completely underrated and should get more attention is the Fight Club soundtrack by the Dust Brothers.
Oh yeah,
this was really good. Highly recommended.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, Dust Brothers, they're on fire on that. It's a brilliant soundtrack. Yeah,
absolutely mind blowing.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah, Synth Addict saying Kubrick's use of Ligeti and Penderecki, obviously Ligeti, that phenomenal voice, those masked voices in 2001 is...
Ligeti never got paid for that. He never received a single cent. Kubrick ripped him off.
No!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that is one of the most iconic musical things of all time in the cinema.
Ligeti went to see The Shining, and he heard his music in the play, and he called the production company of Kubrick and said, "Hey, my music is in the movie. Could I have the money, please?" And they said, "You can sue, but our lawyers are more powerful."
Wow. My goodness. Oh, Dara M is saying, I sat with the Kubrick family during a showing of 2001 in the NFT National Film Theatre, January 1st, 2001. Wow.
That's a privilege.
Yeah, total. Wow. The soundtrack for Mandy is being mentioned from Cristo Rapolo. I haven't actually seen Mandy yet. It's meant to be an amazing film, isn't it?
I haven't seen that.
Yes. Oh, it's meant to be quite a tough one. Yeah, Synthetic saying Kubrick was talented, but an asshole.
Like most directors.
Well, yeah, I guess if you're going to be so single-minded and put people through what, to get those things, I don't think you can be particularly nice, can you?
I mean, we both did some theater work. I mean, I think it's better in the Anglo-Saxon world, but it's a dictatorship usually. It's not all. It's in most cases it's not fun.
Right. In order to kind of have that edge and that, it's
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it's not good leadership, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't have thought so. I was one thing I found quite interesting recently. I'm a big David Lynch fan. I rewatched Twin Peaks, and then I rewatched it so I could watch the new third series, the one that was. Was it like nearly 25 or so years later, the third series, and on the Blu-ray box set that I got for that is like an additional disc that was made by a German filmmaker. I think it's the man with the elevated hair. Hey, look at that! All right, now you're talking. The Man with the Elevated Hair is a multi-part series of like a fly on the wall following David Lynch around specifically the making of this new Twin Peaks series. And it's really interesting. You get to see him going through the whole range of emotions, when he's really pissed off as well. You see him. But the overwhelming thing that I got about David Lynch from watching that, and thankfully, was that he is awesome, and that he really loves the people he works with, and and I mean, I find him a really fascinating director, and the new series, that latest series of Twin Peaks, has got it in droves. This thing of quite an antagonistic approach to things. I don't want to say any spoilers in it, but there's a particular episode which is really quite frustrating and clearly designed to frustrate the audience. And a lot of his films have that. I mean, if it started at the beginning. Eraserhead is a very antagonistic film, isn't it?
I just wanted to mention Eraserhead because. Especially, I mean, it was his first real movie.
Yeah.
And the sound design of that movie is groundbreaking. It's like a million shades of noise. I don't know how he did this in the 60s. It's so
70s. It's about 70. What is it? 70?
70?
78, I think it is, or 77,
really?
78. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Sorry for that.
No. But it's black and white, and it does look older than it. It's got a very weird kind of, the texture of that film is very strange. But I mean, he started with that, and then his next film was the incredible Elephant Man, and another film in black and white, again one that you couldn't really place into a time period, and he was on fire, wasn't he? And then his third film was June, which was a disaster.
Disaster I loved.
I think it's great, but I think there's a real. I mean, the problem was, he made a 5.5 hour film essentially, and the studio was like, "There's no way we're going to release a 5.5 hour film."
But you get the full thing as a TV edit on Blu-ray or DVD.
Well, I've got. I'm looking for. I don't think the full. I think a lot of that is actually sadly lost. I think I'm not sure which one you're going to pull out now, but he took his name off it, like it became. I've got a DVD of it downstairs, which has got these inserts. Just a little bit of background. What happened was, June is obviously a very complicated story, and in the David Lynch cut. You know, the film studio thought, right, okay, let's just cut out all these boring dialogue bits and just keep the action and the big expensive set pieces, and then just remove huge swathes of the storyline. So it's a very disjointed. So I don't think it was necessarily. I think, you know, it looks great. The production design is great, but I
Absolutely.
think, you know. Sting in his weird sort of like leather underpants as well is certainly one of cinema's most embarrassing.
It has become a meme, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. But Alan Smithy, yes. Have you ever heard of Alan Smithy? It's a funny one.
No, help me.
No. Well, what Alan Smithy is if a director removes his name, if he doesn't want his name associated with a project anymore, his name will be replaced by Alan Smithy. Now,
Really?
yeah, it's a really weird, it's a really weird sort of cinema thing, a trope. I don't know what you'd call it. So you can look at, if you look at Alan Smithy's resume of films, they're all films of other directors.
Is there a prominent example?
Well, I think June. I think the edit that was made of June is an Alan Smithy. The one I've got downstairs is. I'm just going to have a little look at Alan Smithy. I will read out some Alan Smithy. I can. Right, Alan Smithy. Films directed by Alan Smithy. Gosh, I mean, I reckon probably most of these will be, you know, never heard of because they were probably terrible films. Meet Joe Black. That had,
really?
Yeah, Anthony Hopkins and Brad Pitt. Directed by Martin Brest, but maybe he withdrew. Look, a 2-hour vision. Here we go. A 2-hour version was made to show on television, cutting most of the plot line, but Brest derided this edit and disowned it. The director's credit was then changed to Alan Smithy.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe this is something you might want to look up at another time, but it's just a most curious little thing, really, and I'm not quite sure who Alan Smithy was, if ever there was a real Alan Smithy.
There certainly was one. Some Alan Smithy.
The Smithy pseudonym was created for use on the film Death of a Gunfighter, released in 1969. During its filming, lead actor Richard Widmark was unhappy with director Robert Totten and arranged to have him replaced by Don Siegel. Siegel later estimated that he spent 9 to 10 days filming, while Totten had spent 25 days. Each had roughly an equal amount of footage. Blah, 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 blah. So there was some panel dispute, and the film did not represent either director's creative vision. The original proposal to credit the fictional Al Smith, but the name was deemed too common, and the last name was changed to Smith with an E on end, and then Smithy, which was thought to be distinctive enough to avoid confusion with similar names without drawing attention to itself. And interestingly, the director was praised by the New York Times, commenting that the film was sharply directed by Alan Smithy, who has an adroit facility for scanning faces and extracting sharp background detail. Robert Ebert, the famous critic, commented, "Director Alan Smithy, a name I'm not familiar with, allows his story to unfold naturally." But then, following its coinage, the pseudonym Alan Smithy was applied retroactively to Fade In, also known as Iron Cowboy, starring Burt Reynolds. Blah, blah, blah. But that's the start of that.
Okay.
So there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, you are getting all sorts of information tonight.
Trivia night with Gaz and Flo.
Wow. Just checking in. Asio Head saying Johnny Greenwood did a great soundtrack on There Will Be Blood. Do you know that one?
Oh, yeah.
Absolute
Great movie.
Wonderful movie.
Love it a lot.
Oh, my goodness. I would actually go as far to say I think Daniel Day-Lewis is probably the greatest living actor, I think. Him and Joaquin Phoenix, movie actor, I think.
How much time do you have for that discussion?
Well, please chip in if you think you can find.
No, but yeah. You're right. Mr. Lewis is really good.
Yeah. And he keeps retiring, doesn't he? He's a very, very, he's very selective about the roles that he takes.
Yeah, but he's retired now, isn't he?
I think so.
Yeah.
But I think he retired before as well. But I think he came back out of retirement to do the one about threads, the fashion one,
the Phantom Thread.
The Phantom Thread. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just trying to check in with the chat room. I'll just tell you though, the worst film I've seen in years, absolutely dreadful film, is Yesterday. Now, the one about the Beatles, about a guy who kind of gets knocked off his bike and then wakes up in an alternative reality. It's a Danny Boyle film, and Danny Boyle makes phenomenal films. It's the biggest steaming pile of poo I've ever seen. It is horrific, and I'm reminded by this by someone actually commenting on Ed Sheeran in the chat room, but. A truly abysmal film. I'm sorry, a truly abysmal film. But anyway, Jamie Murray's saving the conversation here by asking, has anyone seen the Mike Leigh film Naked? Is that one you've seen? It's a phenomenal film if you haven't.
No, I haven't seen it. It's on my list, but currently I'm pretty busy with bad gear, so right. I'm behind my movie schedule.
Yeah. But yes. But actors then, just whilst we're on it, anyone you'd like to throw in here just to challenge to challenge Daniel Day-Lewis?
No, I mean, I just wanted to be provocative. Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis is up there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, definitely. Okay, great. Oh, Paul Artola has seen the new Zappa doc last night. Now, I'm desperate to see this. This is made by Alex Winter of Bill and Ted fame. And has been a long time in the making. A few years ago, I saw a screening of Roxy, the Live at the Roxy. I highly recommend. Have you seen this? The Zappa at the Roxy. It's a film. Now, originally, what happened there was back. There's a great album, a Zappa album called Roxy and Elsewhere, which is. That's the best Zappa lineup in my opinion. They're from I think the concert was in 1973 or 1974, 1973 I think it was, and they recorded it and they filmed it, and the idea was it was going to be a concert film. Now, what's kind of interesting about this was that they filmed it at the wrong speed for syncing it to the audio. Now, back then, that absolutely was unfixable. Because you could not in any way match it was just so out of sync. And it took until maybe, I think it was something like 2015 or 2016 or something like that, as late as that, for the technology to actually be able to repair this synchronization mismatch. And anyway, once it was done, it was released as a very limited edition, a limited cinema run. Yeah. Went to the cinema to see it, and it was astonishing. And yeah, 1973, it definitely was that. Because the cinema was packed. I thought,
I believe that.
Packed.
I've never heard of that. Really interesting.
And what was really nice about this particular screening was that Alex Winter was live on a Skype link, and we were able to ask him questions directly. And the reason for that was because he was working on this Zappa movie. Now, this was a good few years ago, so it's taken him a long old time for it to come out. But yeah, so okay, great. So,
for example, do you know Tarkovsky's Stalker, that movie?
Oh no, I don't. But I know Tarkovsky's. He did
Solaris.
Solaris, of course, yeah.
Yeah. But he made a movie that's called Stalker, and it's
the Stalker, yes, about the nuclear fallout.
About the zone, yeah.
Yeah, the zone.
And he had a finished version of that movie he had to toss because the color grading was off, and there was no way to correct it back then.
What?
He had finished the movie, and it had a green tint, and so he had to toss the whole movie and make it again.
Oh my goodness.
And that movie killed most of the crew, actually. They all got cancer because of the toxins in the water there and stuff like that. Because they filmed it in like some abandoned
what, the green tinted one?
Chemical plant?
The green
No, like
the remake,
both production processes combined.
Oh dear. Oh my gosh.
Art is a dangerous thing.
I just checking in because I'm just throwing so many conversation points out here, just so checking that I'm missing so much of the chat room. Yeah. Oh, Paul Artola is saying that he saw Baby Snakes when it came out in the theatre. That was a Zappa movie that features lots of the animations of the amazing Bruce Bickford. He's a claymation animator. Have you seen his work at all, Bruce Bickford? Oh. I would kind of recommend and not recommend in equal amounts watching that on LSD. And that's not from personal experience, of course. Yes. But yeah.
I'll stick to tea, okay?
But yeah, an astonishing artist, Bruce Bickford. And I think he makes a small appearance in the new Zappa documentary as well. So, yes. Anyway, just pulling things into the now. Computer games. Do you play? Is that something any interest in?
I'm deeply fascinated with the medium of computer games. I don't play myself. I don't have any contemporary computer that can run a contemporary computer game. From time to time, I get caught playing on some DOS box on whatever computer is just around and play some games from the 90s. And some people have noticed that probably in the background of some videos, I do have some vintage game consoles. I have a Nintendo 64, which is
that's vintage
in my
now.
humble opinion,
yeah,
the best gaming console ever made.
Okay.
I have a PlayStation 1. I have an old school, like the first NES that doesn't work anymore, unfortunately. And I have another kind? Yeah, I have a Super Nintendo.
So the reason why I was asking this was because, Super Nintendo. Hallelujah. Are you influenced by game soundtracks?
Yes, I am totally influenced by game soundtracks, and it's good that I am, because if you have, for example, all those cheap 80s FM synth and stuff, how can you escape that?
Yeah,
I mean, I had like the Yamaha FB01 on the show, and it's got a very similar chip to the Sega Mega Drive. It's called in Europe. It's called Genesis in the US, I think.
That's right. Yeah,
it's a very similar chip. I think it's just like the number of voices, but the sound is pretty similar. So yeah, how should you be able to escape that curse of old school computer soundtracks?
Well, partly why I mentioned this, I mean, Nick Batt famously really doesn't like kind of chip tunes, and he doesn't like he just doesn't like it. I think possibly he's of that he's slightly too old for it, I think. He's not very old, but I mean, I think it might be it might be a generational shift. Partly why I mention that is because I've been teasing this a little bit. This is my latest arrival.
Ben Jordan talked about it, I think.
Yeah, and this is it's had quite a few
tracker.
The Polyend tracker, yeah. And you know, is very much influenced by, well, obviously as a tracker, but you know, ideal for making kind of computer game soundtrack type stuff. Or but one of the things that I'm always fascinated by is composing with super limitations, like the Spectrum computer that came out in the 1980s, you know, in the 8-bit era. It's voice chip was monophonic, but through all sorts of very clever programming, people managed to do incredible things with it. You know,
I agree.
You know, like full polyphonic music. How with a single voice doing really fast changing between kind of like waveforms, and they give this aural illusions, I guess, in some cases. Yeah, I mean,
but we see this in the popularity of the SID chip of the Commodore 64.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think that what really turned around the whole computer game music genre is the Quake soundtrack made by Trent Reznor.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
This is phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it was on CD.
Yeah.
It was not that synth chips anymore that were somewhere in a console. It was from CD, but this was a real game changer. I think it is.
Yeah.
It is a similar step to what happened in the 2016 Doom soundtrack thing made by, who's that guy called, that Australian guy?
Oh.
Mick Gordon.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is like, I mean, it's heavy shit. Sorry for saying that. It's heavy stuff. It's heavy stuff. It's got a lot of guitars, but the concept that he uses for producing the synth sounds is really impressive. There is like a 1 hour like clinic made by him where he explains his workflow and stuff like that. Really interesting. Highly recommended.
Okay, that's cool. Because I remember,
he's got like parallel effect pedal chains where he sends sine waves through, and this is like the most hellish sound you can imagine. Would be cool for your pedal show, probably.
Okay, yeah, that sounds ace. When you were mentioning then about the Nine Inch Nails soundtrack for Quake, there was always that like little cheeky thing. There was the nail gun in Quake, and when you picked up ammo, it had the Nine Inch Nails logo on the nail gun ammo, which I thought was a really nice little touch there. So really, from I'm talking to you, you've got a very wide taste in music and culture, I guess. So do you feel then that sometimes gear channels people too much into genres, for instance? You know, so some gear, for instance, comes out and you can actually select what genre the gear, what genre the sounds are from.
I know what you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It is something that I experience, especially with 90s groove boxes.
Yes.
Not so much with the 80s romplers, but the 90s groove boxes are. It's so tempting to like, okay, I like that sound, I want to use it, and you're immediately in a certain genre. That happens all the time. It's usually like, if I have 2 jams of a 90s groove box on my show, it's like, okay, now I take all the cliches, and now I try to avoid the cliches, and I fall into that trap again. Yeah.
I always something I've always said is as soon as a genre becomes a selectable device on a piece of hardware, then that genre is kind of dead from a kind of artistic sort of point of view.
I would say that, I mean, a lot of the genres that are on the microcorg are still alive and kicking. I mean, there's a hip hop selector knob and techno knob. I mean, it's
okay. Good point. yeah, totally undermined my point there with logic and rational reasoning.
Not that I wouldn't say that the sounds that are in that category on the synth would be the sounds of my choice for contemporary versions of that genre.
Good point. No, but I always kind of think that I always feel it's like genres can be a trap. This is my music taste, I suppose. That I don't like the idea of that if you make music that you have to work within such kind of narrow defining lines. I guess I get it. I understand that that's kind of important from a marketing point of view, that this is that, but from a personal point of view, then I don't know, not keen.
From a music consumer's point of view, I would say that, for example, when it comes to all that dance music stuff, it would be very irritating if you break the flow during a DJ set or whatever. So if you are in a techno club, you want that techno. Of course, and there's a reason for that. People want to dance. It's not about the music; it's about the act of dancing and partying and stuff like that. So,
and the tempos.
I totally understand it in that application.
Yeah.
But one of the main reasons I really like doing that YouTube gear stuff is because I have the total freedom in genre. I can do whatever I want. I can do some Klaus Schulze 70s electronic music stuff, and then some neck-breaking breakbeats, whatever, and it's not a problem. This is something I really enjoy, because I always found it a little limiting to I have to do that genre, because like people will hate me if I play one note outside of that very limited range of what I'm allowed to use in that genre.
but then you're able to then just immediately do something else in a completely different genre because your platform. That's cool. That's a good way. That's a good way around it. I'm just going to check in with the chat room because a few games have been cited. Space Harrier and F-Zero, Gear Mania 5000 is saying, which
F-Zero is great.
Yeah, I love the soundtrack.
Really like that.
Yeah, great soundtrack. And also, what else did I notice? Daniel Perry's mentioning about Last Wave on Outrun. It's a classic. That is beauty. It is. I love that Outrun soundtrack.
I mean, Outrun has become a genre. There's a whole synthwave genre that is called Outrun. So
right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I can't remember. I think it was with oh God. I wish I still had it. It'd probably be worth a fortune now. There was a magazine for the Spectrum called Crash. It was a great name. And I think it was with Crash. They gave, don't know if it was, I can't remember, but like some 8-bit version of Outrun came out, and you got on the front cover of the magazine a cassette of the actual soundtrack of Outrun. You know, so imagine that just from a kind of a synthwave collector's point of view. You know, a cassette Outrun soundtrack from a magazine from the 80s.
Last week I had the Quasi-MIDI Sirius on the show.
Oh,
this
yeah.
90s rave synth techno thing with sequencer and vocoder and whatnot. And they shipped it with a CD of the demo tracks.
Oh.
Which are actually pretty nice.
Oh, nice.
A lot of 90s bangers. It's a whole album. It's like 40 minutes of demo tracks that are, I mean, it gets a little weaker in the end, but like the first 5, 6, 7 are really nice.
Oh, that's cool. I think my good friend Jörg Scharf of Radical Technologies, I think he was involved very much in Quasi-MIDI. And so which one was it? Sorry, it was the Sirius or
the Sirius. I had a little chat after the release of the episode with Jörg Scharf.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Jörg's great.
He's a legend. Absolutely.
Total legend. Yeah. Right. Well, I'm checking in time. I think we'll probably be kind of drawing the conversation a little bit to a close. So, last chance saloon in the chat room for questions for Florian. Just talking now about 2021 and what plans that you have or carrying on. Everyone's hoping that you're going to carry on doing what you're doing.
It looks like it, and I would say that I am a person who used to make plans, and I quit doing that. I just do what I think is right, and when I see that something has to change, I try to change it.
Nice, yeah. So to be very flexible and just but I mean, now have you got a crown? Did they give you a crown for your music tech personality?
They didn't even tell me that I'm nominated. Somebody in the comments told me.
Yeah, because it's just should have some sort of crown that you wear with it emblazoned across.
I mean, you still have kings and queens. We stopped having that, but I don't think it's necessary.
Andrew Brooks is saying, "What's the next bit of bad gear, or is that a secret?"
You will see on Friday.
Christmas.
Friday.
A Christmas release. Okay.
Yeah, it's a Christmas episode, actually. I don't want to spoil what it is, but it's very Christmassy, and it's one of the most requested pieces of gear in the comments section.
Okay, I've got a few questions here to go through. First album bought.
First album bought. It was not an album. It was an EP, and it was The Cranberries, and it had Zombie on it.
Ah, okay. So what's this other question? Which is worse, Aria TB3 or Behringer TB3? I don't think. I mean,
completely different thing. I had both next to each other in the TB3 episode, and it's a completely different synth. They can fulfill the same function, but the Behringer got that quirky, rubbery thing you would expect from a 303.
Yeah. And
the TB3 is like, it can do the 303 thing, but it can do so much else. And I really wanted to hate it. I really, really wanted to hate it, and it really grew on me. It has become one of my go-to synths now.
Well, that's interesting. Ira, That's sorry, not Aria. Ira. I know. I knew. I
looks so ugly.
Couldn't quite work out of my
nice
brain there. Ed the Wave's asking, what bad gear do you enjoy using the most? Well, maybe you just answered that with a TD3 or.
It is probably the Waldorf Rocket.
Oh, I have
the
one.
Waldorf Rocket is such a fantastic instrument, and you can clearly see the handwriting of Mr. Hartmann.
Yeah.
In that thing, because it's this fantastic combination of this digital oscillator that is like paraphonic, and you got all kinds of waveforms that you can like tweak very precisely, and you got that warm analog Waldorf filter, and then you got the big knobs and this like small and nice design. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I like it too. I mean, my biggest kind of gripe about it though is just not having a volume control. You've got a headphone control, but I wish that would control the line out volume as well. That's my gripe with it, because it's always full, you know. And
I usually have like a Boss LS2 behind it.
So you can control it with that. I do something similar. Yeah, so I've got some kind of gain control on it. There is gosh, years ago, Nick Batt and myself, it was an idea I had. I did a jam. I took the Rocket into Sonic State Studios, and I did a jam where I was only allowed to press the launch. I'm only allowed the launch button, so it's just like a one finger. It's like the one finger jam. Just Nick was playing. I think it was a Sub 37, and I'm just hammering away on the launch button there. I think that's still up there on YouTube somewhere.
It's possible with the LFO, yeah.
Yeah. You can do. I mean, it is a cool little. I think it is a cool box. I find that to be a lot of fun. Okay, I think I'm going to call time now, just because I don't want to go on too long. Gosh, I went on really long on Monday on my show. I went on nearly 3 hours. But
really?
Oh God, I was started off. I was doing about Eurorack. I just ended up just talking about festivals and Glastonbury, and but it was a nice old chat, and there was a lot of conversation with the chat room. So who were encouraging me. So I think it's their fault. Okay, so I'm gonna. Well, first of all, thank you very much for joining, Florian. I think it's
thanks for having me.
Major pleasure. I mean, you know, a conversation has whizzed around somewhere, and we'd definitely love to get you back in the future for another chat if I'm
looking forward to it.
Oh, fabulous! And you know, and now again, huge congratulations for your recent that recent thing. Just to acknowledge all the hard work that you've done this year, and for that. Just to entertaining us all. GNU Ninja's just saying the envelopes on the Rocket could be better. An attack control would be quite nice, but that's a part of it, wouldn't it?
But that's actually a feature, because you can't mess it up in a live situation.
Yeah,
you see at the first glance what this thing is doing at every time. So I bought it for that reason, because in a DAWs jam, you just look at it and you know what this thing is gonna do. Like the first time.
Okay, that's great. Just check in just before we go, just in case there's anything else anyone's saying. There's loads of nice, lots of people sort of saying thank you and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. So everybody, thank you ever so much. I think I'm going to be taking a little bit of time out. I won't be doing my Friday show, but so make sure you tune in to the latest episode of Bad Gear on Audio Pilz, being released on Christmas Day. Ooh, I wonder what it will be. And yeah, thanks everybody so much again for your continued support of my show, and obviously for watching Florian's fabulous productions too. And with that in mind, I think we could do a nice little wave there. We can say goodbye to everybody. And again, thank you so much, Florian, for joining us. And
thank you all. Thank you, Gaz.